Shots fired in Port Loyola, but they didn't come from the barrel of a gun. Try the mouth of a politician. You'll hear how the PUP's Port Loyola rep, Gilroy Usher, blasts MIDA. Says Julius and his crew have a lot of excuses. We'll have all sides of this cabinet punch-up. And growing cocaine in Belize, it's real. We'll show you the cacao plantation that the BDF found in the south. Plus, the latest from the PM on the cane crisis in the north, also body found in Hattieville. We'll talk to the victim's mother. And can the PM drive a cargo truck? He can, but reversing it is another story. We'll show you. Plus, we'll introduce you to the woman with maybe the longest nails in Belize. We've got details of these and other stories in our newscast for tonight, Wednesday, December 21st, 2002. Good evening. With your news, I'm Indira Craig.
DJs and and we have big event when they come up, that event we are nice of the whole of San Pedro for Christmas, and we have to cancel this event because of this late decisions where the government they make. We don't have to look on the business place now in San Pedro and say, yeah, what there are places here, San Pedro, Kikaka, Placencia, there are places supposed to operate. Tourists not come to San Pedro, especially San Pedro, if you go lock up here and no hotel because the club not open. At least give all of the club places them a warning about what people think about, because it's not fair for we. We lose money per flights, deposit money what we send to artists, to DJs, everybody, and who are pay we back now. They are international artists. When we book them, give you a contract. If they know a storm, if they know a natural disaster or something where they can't make it from where they come from, so we money, they don't know.
We understand that there is the law that state that these places cannot open. And I understand that the Commissioner of Police is giving us the break for other bar owners, nightclub owners to operate until midnight, when the law, I think, states about 7 or 10 p.m. So we do understand that. But the other issue is that it was never enforced. So bringing this up last minute, you know, the wages for employees, we have DJs, like I said, you have security personnel, everybody that will be affected. The fact that these guys implemented this in the last minute didn't allow people to prepare. What I think, and you know, I have spoken to my friend Oscar before, a lot of these decisions that are made are not, they don't reach out to places like San Pedro or Placencia that are other tourist destinations that these decisions affect big time. So I think they should try to reach out to these people, or the people that will be affected, to see how they could adjust to make it work.
And we've just received a notice from the Commissioner of Police that San Pedro has its own liquor license carved out, and he will be supplying that to the media tomorrow. Last night, we told you how a joint law enforcement team of members of the Belize Defense Force, the Coast Guard and police traveled to the southwestern edge of the Toledo district to destroy 3 clandestine coca plantations. As we told you, Belizean lawmen detected these plantations along the Sarstoon River near the remote Graham Creek village. They quickly realized that unknown narco-traffickers were attempting to establish cocaine laboratories on Belizean soil. So they organized an operation to cut down and burn approximately 120,000 plants today. We asked Police Commissioner Chester Williams about that major interdiction effort, and he tipped his hat to the BDF for the excellent reconnaissance missions that led to the discovery. Here's what he had to say.
Credit needs to be given where it is due to the Belize Defense Force and their thinkers who are in charge of the border area in terms of ensuring that our external security is looked after. And as much as, yes, some might say, well, they found the plantation a little too late because they have already matured, I don't think so, because certainly it was found before cultivation, which is important. And they went in, they came across the discovery, and we were notified. We did what needed to have been done and went in and do the destruction along with the BDF. And so kudos to the BDF and their thinkers for the excellent intelligence on that, on those plantations. It certainly goes a long way in our narco traffickers fight. And so I give credit to them. Again, if it is that there are any other plantations out there and people knows of them, we'd like to be notified so that we can do what is right to ensure that our country is not used to plant cocoa plants and later on to develop cocaine through our country. So it goes a long way for us.
So it must distress you to see that the brazenness of these transnational criminals using the border area to try, because they know it is so remote.
Yes, certainly, and we know that about a year or two ago, cocoa plants were found in Guatemala. And from when it was found in Guatemala, we said that if it is in Guatemala, then perhaps it is also in Belize. And so we have now confirmed that Belize is being used to plant cocoa plants, and the fact that we were able to intercept through the BDF, we are grateful for that.
Is there any indication that maybe locals from southern Belize are involved in the planting of these plants?
Yes, we do have suspicion that there are Belizeans who are involved. We know who those Belizeans are, and we're monitoring them.
And while that coca operation was found in Belize, there was a drug plane and boat operation found near the Pacific coast of Guatemala on Wednesday morning. The Guatemalan Armed Forces found the drug plane and waiting boats. The same drug plane is believed to have been circulating near Bahia Vista, Toledo on Tuesday night. The commissioner said that they have been circling.
We have had a number of traffic in our airspace of recent. our efforts have been able to deter some of them from landing within our borders. And in those instances, I know 2 instances where one landed in Guatemala and one in Mexico. In both cases, the Guatemalan and the Mexican authorities were able to intercept the cargo and arrested some people. So again, it goes to show that our multi-agency approach in Belize, as well as the partnering with our neighboring countries, Guatemala and Belize, is yielding great success in the fight against narco-traffickers.
As you heard, the Commissioner insists joint Belizean law enforcement teams were pivotal in enforcing the narcos operating those flights to divert away from Belize. And that's why he and the BDF general, who was more diplomatic, disagreed with the Coast Guard commandant, who attributed the reduction of drug plane landings in Belize to their leadership of the Joint Intelligence Operating Center, GIOC. For context, we revisit the Coast Guard Admiral's comments, followed by the BDF general's reaction.
The impact that we've had on drug trafficking through Belize has certainly decreased. When you look at plane landings in Belize, certainly decreased. And that's credited to our officer that is posted at the Joint Intelligence and Operating Center. Currently, the Coast Guard is the director of the GIOC, and they've been doing an exceptional job in terms of reducing air traffic. So you would notice the last aircraft that landed in Belize would have been sometime around July. So that's exceptional work from the Coast Guard.
Does that put you all to shame? Because obviously there is collusion within the police department and drug-related criminals, but I also think we've seen that BDF have also been involved.
That, what you're asking is a rhetorical question. You are trying to create mischief here. We respect the commandant of the Coast Guard. My aim for the Belize Defense Force is to ensure that we are 100% combat effective force in the Belize Defense Force, and we will do what is right to maintain the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the nation. And I won't go there talking much about this. My intent is that the Belize Defense Force is always there to support any agency, any government institution and NGO as well, and we will do that to the best of our ability. So if there has been any reductions, that's what it is, and if we have done so, it's not because of one only organization, but it is because of a whole of government approach.
Paul Chester, who is not known to mince words, went on to make that case for the whole of government approach that has led to better collaboration between Belize's 3 major law enforcement arms.
Certainly, GIOC is a multi-agency operational center. It is not under the command of Coast Guard. GIOC is under the command of the Ministry of Defense, not Coast Guard. It so happens that the current director is a Coast Guard officer, and that Coast Guard officer answers to the CEO and the Ministry of Defense. Now, in GIOC, we have police officers. The deputy is a police officer. We also have police officers who are in charge of the intel at GIOC. To say that the results we're yielding now is as a result of one man from the Coast Guard who is posted at the center as a director is an unfair statement and a slap in the face of the other security forces that works within the GIOC center. Let me say that when we respond to plane landings, it is a joint effort between the police and the BDF for the most part. The Coast Guard will cover the coastal domains. Now, there's a lot that has been done from even a ministerial standpoint between Minister Marine, Minister Musa, along with the junior minister in Mr. Mira, to see how from a ministerial standpoint they can give us more resources to be able to combat narco-traffickers. From the police standpoint, we have received upgrades in weaponry, we have received bulletproof vests, we have received additional vehicles. As a matter of fact, I have deployed vehicles to this North Composite, the South Composite, the Coastal Composite, and to the Blue Creek area. Those are police resources that I have deployed to those areas. I've also increased the number of quick response personnel to respond to plane landings. The military can also say the same, that they have also placed additional resources to be able to deal with narco trafficking. And so you'll find that due to the support we're getting from our ministers, we have more resources to be able to respond more adequately. And may I also say that the fact that we were successful in 3 successive landings, that serves as a deterrent as well. It makes the drug traffickers understand that Belize is now upping its game. They are now being caught. And so certainly they will seek alternative places to land. The landmass of Mexico and Guatemala is much huger than Belize's landmass. And so now they're taking a risk to land in those countries as opposed to Belize. And may I also say that there are some that would have landed in Belize, but the presence of our teams, and not police, but police, BDF, and Coast Guard jointly in those prospective landing areas, deterred those aircraft from landing in within our borders and went and land in Guatemala or Mexico. So it is unfair for the commandant of Coast Guard to have gone and take the credit for the success that we're seeing as it relates to the deterring of these aircraft landing. It is a joint success for the 3 security forces, as well as the ministerial input from the 3 ministers who are involved with these 3 different organizations.
Reports we've received suggest that police are closely monitoring individuals they believe to be facilitating the narcos to land planes in Belize. Here's how he made the point that actionable intelligence and surveillance have helped in the fight against these transnational criminal operations.
Intelligence plays a very critical role in our fight against narco traffickers. Our special branch, the BDF Finkles, and even the Coast Guard Intel, we have been working together to see how we can get in pre-intelligence on these traffickers. And that too have helped, because through the pre-intelligence, we have been targeting these persons. I can tell you I have the ANU busy going after these suspected drug traffickers or facilitators in Belize to make sure that we don't give them the opportunity that they may need to plan a landing. So, and the BDF is doing the same with the Finkles. So all of these are playing into the successes that we're seeing now. I can tell you Minister Marin and Minister Musa, they are very aggressive in terms of making sure that we do what needs to be done to prevent these planes from landing within our border here, our borders. So again, we are going to continue the collaboration with the 3 security forces to make sure that we continue to yield the success that we're seeing now.
And while the security forces have their little turf tensions going on, the joint unions have their own bone to pick with the government. Yesterday, they were finally able to have a meeting with the Prime Minister, John Briceño, along with Cordell Hyde, Francis Fonseca, Henry Usher, and the FinSec. But while they'd gone into the meeting with a list of requests, the answer they got for most of those was no. According to the president of the PSU, Dean Flowers, one of the more important topics included good governance matters, which the government told the unions that was in progress. Another topic they had interest in was a proposed insurance scheme for public officers, which was met with a flat no. And of course, the most pressing issue was whether the public officers would get back their increments. I don't think we need to tell you what the answer to that one was. Here's how Flowers explained it to us via Zoom.
We were the one that were sacrificed in an effort to create fiscal space to allow this country to rebound. Every single other sector of the public service, as it relates to ministers, chief executive officers, contract officers who lost salaries or allowances, those have been restored. In addition to that, where the chief executive officers are concerned, their contracts were even varied to give them an increase because the economy is rebounding and continues to rebound, all as a result of the sacrifice that was placed on public officers. And so we expected then that as a courtesy, not as a reward, as a courtesy at least, that public officers would be given back their increments. Without flinching, the Prime Minister was clear that that ain't going to happen. And he also stated bluntly that not only will there be no reinstatement of increments, but that whenever this administration decides to resume any payment of increments, it has to be contingent on the pension reform. And when we speak pension reform, we're speaking contributory pension for public sector workers. If we have now created fiscal space for this administration to go down the path that every single administration has gone since 1981, which is borrow, 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 and borrow recklessly, we have created that fiscal space, or that fiscal space was created on our backs. Then the least that we would have expected that a little bit of those supplementals and those borrowing will be for public officers. What's further insulting is that the Prime Minister was also clear that not a single public officer will be placed on the correct pay scale. So for those who would have lost 4 increments, they will remain right where they were. They're not going to be placed 4 increments up when his administration decides to play Santa Claus and resume increments. So you cannot put that on public officers and say because you're not happy with the appraisal system that you're going to freeze and withhold increment and you will resume increments when you see fit. And it has to be contingent on pension reform. The only pension reform that this administration should be talking about is to have representatives of the House qualify for a pension after the age of 55, after serving 15 years as is required of every other public officer. We will not continue for this administration to be treating us like beggars and to continue to punish us simply because they seem to have a problem with the labor sector, with the labor movement. The private sector doesn't go through these type of injustices. As a matter of fact, recently they announced that they're giving the private sector $1 million in duty exemption. This is apart from the other staff loans and grants that they've granted to them. It's a neoliberal government. It's an anti-labor and an anti-union government.
And one of the other issues that the joint unions brought up was the PUP's own manifesto promise that they would get rid of CEOs and bring back permanent secretaries. Well, while GOB might have been eager to put that in writing, they aren't so eager to implement it since they told the unions they would wait for the recommendations from the People's Constitutional Committee. But Flowers says the CEO system is a disservice to public officers.
Yeah, they denied keeping with their Plan Belize manifesto. I keep saying to them, when we come to make a request of you, it is based on the Plan Belize manifesto that you keep beating your chest on. You cannot continue to pick and choose what it is you want to present to the Belizean public. You presented a comprehensive document, which included a good governance aspect, a political reform aspect, and a public sector reform aspect. You said that you could have implemented these things in 100 days. We're now 720 days in, and we still have a CEO system which they implemented in the public service, which quickly caused the public service to deteriorate. The reason why they placed it in Plan Belize is because they know that it was an error on their part when it was introduced. when they were in government. And so clearly they wanted to fix it. But guess what? They're living high off the hog now. Things sweet. You could pick up anybody out there and make them see you and everybody to live happy. So why break up the party in the best interest of public officers? No, man. Not public officers take their lick, make Belizeans take their lick. That's for we time for it.
The other topics discussed at the meeting included implementing a tax recovery unit, which the government said is in progress, as well as the timeline for the closure of CBA between GOB and joint unions, and the timeline for the signing of the CBA between Baja and PSU, none of which the parties agreed to by the end of the meeting. For the last 2 weeks, we've been diving deep into the changes at the Belize Companies and Corporate Affairs Registry, to which the Briceño government has made some advancements. Another digital lane to government services has been opened, and the registry keep has also closed a major security risk by reducing leaks to private company information. But, as they say, progress brings problems. In this case, the government stepped on the toes of journalists by making it a lot more difficult for civilian investigators to access private company records. A recent ruling from the European Court of Justice also points to this as the best way to protect a business owner's rights to privacy versus the right of the public to know who the ultimate beneficial owners are. So, to find common cause with the press, the PM and his finance minister of state suggested that the government could implement a policy and law change that would oblige all government contractors to forego the intermediate protection of having what's called a registered agent. That then allows the government to know who the beneficial owners are. And the PM and his junior finance minister says that government will be better able to guard against unjust enrichment and corruption. But what about those companies the government deals with that are owned by offshore companies or IBCs? You'll remember that he and his party couldn't get to the beneficial owner of Goodly Limited, who they asserted was the majority shareholder in Brad's gaming company and the actual beneficiaries of the Bolido contracts. Also, our research shows that Smart SpeedNet has majority shareholders, which are also IBCs. They're also a major telecommunications provider for the government. So, what will his government do to determine who those beneficial owners are? Well, here's what he had to say when we put that question to him yesterday.
Well, first of all, we've already instituted a policy. And now we're having the Attorney General to look at what laws we need to amend to ensure that that does not take place. We believe that as a government, we have a right to say we are managing the people's monies. And if you want to be able to do business with us, the government, then you cannot operate in a company that has registered agents. I don't see how they can challenge that. Now, if two private entities want to have a deal with one another using a registered agent, then that's your right. That's a constitutional right. They can do that. But when it comes to government, any business, private or public, can decide that say, I'm not doing any business with a company that has a registered agent. It is all right too. So as government, we are saying, if you want to do business with us, you cannot use a registered agent. We need to know who are the members of your board of directors, who are the owners of the shares, who are the shareholders, and who are the ultimate beneficiaries.
So how do you deal with that when in cases where the owners of these companies you're in business with are also offshore owners in IBCs?
Well, they would not be able to do business with government, period. It's punto final. It's as simple as that.
Sir, but I make the point that one company is currently doing business with the government, Smart SpeedNet. We understand, based on our investigation, that it is a company that multiple IBCs own several percentage shareholdings in it. That would, by your suggestion, would disqualify them.
But probably it would, and it's something I have to look at, because the same thing applies to certain media companies, that they also have a company that has a registered agent. So if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander.
As you heard the PM suggest this could mean that his administration may reserve the right to discontinue advertising contracts with media houses that are partly owned by IBCs. We'll keep following this change, which has been advertised as an eventual amendment to the appropriate laws. And a U.S. fugitive found in Belize was accused of kidnapping. Now, police in the States have found what could be his girlfriend's body. His Belizean employer said he knew where the body was buried. And attorney Sharon Pitts, she was caught up in one of those Vega land scandals, but now she has been fully vindicated. We'll tell you about it. Don't go away.
Rocking around the Christmas tree and
Belize, you're watching the Nation Station, Channel 7.
Three weeks ago, we told you about Aldrich Scott, an American fugitive caught on Belizean soil when his Belizean employer handed him over to police. Scott is back now in Nebraska's prison, and tonight he may be closer to a conviction after authorities in Topeka, Kansas, investigating the disappearance of his alleged victim, Carrie Allen, discovered a body. They have yet to identify who it is, but the Douglas County Sheriff's Office expects an identification to be made by Friday. What's interesting about the discovery being made in Kansas is that its location lines up with claims made by Shelton Fuentes, the man who turned Scott kidnapper over to authorities. 2 weeks ago, Fuentes told Cherise Halsal that Scott had admitted to burying Carrie, quote, in his backyard. And while the location where the body was found is not known to be Scott's property, the town was Aldrich Scott's home before he fled to Belize. Here's what authorities in Nebraska are saying about the ongoing investigation.
We're still communicating with the authorities there. They should be doing an autopsy here either today or tomorrow. Once we got that information back, we should be able to make a positive idea for that.
Now, did he admit to you that he had killed this girl?
Yes, he admitted to me, and he told me that he's the one that committed the crime.
Did he give you more details about that?
Well, he told me that he and the girl was in a relationship. From there, he loved the girl, and he never mean to kill the girl, so he told me it was an accident. He was in a corner crying, and I told him, Nelson, why you are crying? He told me I do not want to go to jail because if the feds meet him, or if the FBI meet him, or the CIA meet him, he will get time. So from there, he told me that make I turn him in, make I give him to the police, because end of the day he just want to go to jail and for the rest of his life.
Allen went missing after leaving a bar in her hometown on November 19th. Going back to our interview with the PM, the press also asked him if his administration is considering raising the age at Social Security retirement benefits kicks in. He said that no such topic has been broached with him.
The SSB age from 65 to 70.
Well, I think that's something that's in discussion. It has not come up to me to me yet. But the truth of the matter is that that Belizeans are living longer. So obviously the retirement age has to change because now we're living longer. That's what Social Security is all about. And so we have to be able to take a look at that. But I have not received anything from Social Security.
Author Godfrey Smith appeared on Uncut with Jules Vasquez last night, where he discussed his new book, Diary of a Recovering Politician. The pair explored many of the subjects in the book of essays, from religion to politics to Michael Ashcroft. But one of the most revealing moments came when Smith plainly admitted that jealousy and resentment were at the root of the demise of the Musa administration in its second term from 2003 to 2008. Here's a recap of that moment.
The demise of the PUP, that formidable machine that won so magnificently in '98, it came down to seething resentment at the inequality, lack of balance, and the enormous power vested in one man.
You're right that, with 3.5 years to go in office, we had lost the confidence of the people in a wilderness of lies and deception.
Yes. Yes. You helped expose a lot of those things. That was the truth.
It's the episode. You can find it on the Jules Vasquez Uncut YouTube channel. The episode also repeats tonight on Channel 7. And that judgment may be one of the last to be delivered by Justice Lisa Showman. She's leaving the bench along with a number of other judges before the start of the new year. Both the criminal and civil divisions of the court are impaired by this exodus of judges. And 2 days ago in Dangriga, one senior legal practitioner lamented the state of the bench. He criticized those who appoint foreign judges and said there are capable Belizeans who can fill those vacant posts.
The former judges at the Supreme Court on the criminal side, John Chowder Gonzalez and Justice Lucas, we still call their name, we still praise them up because the caliber of judges who is being thrown at the country right now is way, way below what we're used to. And persons like Anthony Sylvester and the Director of Public Prosecution should be sitting on the bench to help us to have fairness and justice. You saw me speaking with a lawyer who just came out of the Supreme Court just now. She's so upset, she applied for bail for a person, and the judge just said, I'll deal with that next week. This is Christmas, Jesus wants everybody to, he himself said, we have to treat the prisoners fairly. You're only accused of a crime. You're not to be punished with bail. You're not to be punished with bail. Bail is not to punish a person. The committee, it is legally the Legal and Judicial Services Commission. They are doing Belize, they are doing the people of our country, your country and my country, they're doing us a great disservice by dumping people as judges on us, when especially we have the caliber, the quality, the ability right here in our country. I have called you 2 names, the other lawyers, they have 5, 6 names of people who, excuse me, what is going on in Belize? Why are we waking up people to come here and be judges in our country when we have people here? So the president of the Bar Association and whoever represents the bar that sits on that commission, and whoever from the Solicitor General's office sits on a commission, then they do we want law.
In his long lamentation about foreign judges, Bradley also complained about the fact that Belize also now has a foreign Chief Justice, Louise Blenman. He said the former acting CJ, Michelle Arana, was just fine by him.
I understand there's going to be an exodus. We only have two Belizean judges, Judge Ladd and Justice Antoinette Moore. Everybody else is a foreigner. And remember, we also did a bad thing. We had a Belizean acting as Chief Justice, and for whatever reasons, the powers that be decided that they wouldn't ask her to be the Chief Justice.
But they say she did not apply.
How you apply to something where you don't have and you do? She's been a judge, she's been the Chief Justice of the country for more than 2 years. There's never been any fault with her judgments or her administration. Plus, they just changed the law to take the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal and to make some kind of sere or tamales thing where nobody quite understand what they're doing, but they have said the Chief Justice will only be like an administrator for the courts. You're telling me Michelle Arana, who was the top student of the year when she graduated, won an overseas scholarship, has a master's degree, and lived her life as a lawyer and a judge, can't administrate a handful of judges just to which case goes to which judge and so on? That is insulting our intelligence.
Back in October of 2016, Sharon Pitts, the attorney who became known for her ultra-nationalist stances, was caught up in that land scandal in which Andre Vega, son of the former Minister of Natural Resources, Gaspar Vega, received $400,000 in compensation for land that the former government did not own and should not have sold. For whatever reason, the ministry, which was under Gaspar Vega's stewardship at the time, sold a parcel of private land, which then triggered the ministry's compensation mechanism as the administrator of all lands in Belize. 7 News obtained evidence that demonstrated that the ministry was duly advised by its technocrats that the land was private. Well, in the same way that the Court of Appeal has found that Andre Vega cannot be held accountable for the ministry's decision to shoot itself in the foot, the Supreme Court says that Pitts cannot be considered to be unjustly enriched. Our newsroom recently received a copy of the decision from the presiding judge, the outgoing Justice Lisa Showman. Justice Showman found, quote, "I do not find that the claimant has provided the necessary evidence for a declaration that the settlement agreement which it executed and which it acted upon is void because of the defendant's bad faith. The defendant cannot be said to have been unjustly enriched for those sums of money which were freely paid to her as compensation by the claimant in 2015. There will be no order for disgorgement of the sum of $400,000. Settlement agreement in any event having been performed by both the claimant as well as by the defendant by its express terms actually bars the parties from any further action, liability, claim, demand, damages, and judgments relating to the subject matter of the dispute between the parties. The following orders are made. The claimant's claim is dismissed, the defendant's counterclaim succeeds partially, and the following declarations are made. The claimant shall pay defendant's costs in the sum of 15,000 Belize dollars, end quote. We'll have a more detailed look at this outcome in our subsequent newscasts. And finally, tonight is your home safe from a Christmas-related fire. It's something you might want to consider as you light up the tree and prep the most decadent meal of the year. With all the things you're doing this time of year, taking time out for safety can seem like a tall order, but there are several basic precautions, like checking your power cords and throwing out any wires that have become old or faulty. Those small adjustments can mean the difference between a happy holiday and a complete disaster. But if you're not yet equipped with a smoke detector or a fire alarm, don't fret. This morning on Sunup on 7, Belize's senior fire crew explained everything you need to know to keep your home fire-free this Christmas.
This is, you know, the usual, right? You're messing with your lights that you put up from last year, and all of a sudden that one bulb doesn't want to work, and you try to fix it while plugged in, right? Could be a very big issue. What you should do when you plug in, and people like to go to the nearest store and buy, just give me an extension card, right?
$4.95.
$4.95. Get the cheapest one, because if you ever touch, if you put everything in it and plug it in and it starts to feel warm, that's a sign. It's a sign. And remember, a big part of electrical fires is because of the load on your panel box, right? Their breaker box. People get all sorts of new electrical things. They get a new microwave, for example, or air fryer. A microwave pulls a lot of current.
Yes.
Yes. If that switch, if that outlet wasn't made for that amount of current, voltage, then you're going to have an issue. So what people usually do is the breaker keeps tripping every time they put on the microwave, or the lights start to dim.
Yes.
That's a sign that you should not do that, right? And what do they do when the breaker breaks? What happens when the breaker goes off?
People just switch it back on.
They switch it back on, or they put in a bigger one. If you're cooking, pay attention to your stove, or don't start talking on the phone and forget that the oven is on, right?
Or the beans the bun.
Or the beans bun, right? And then there's a new thing that people try to use this
air fryer.
Air fryer, or they try to to fry the turkey.
Deep fried turkey.
Deep fry the
Deep
turkey.
fried turkey, right?
Yeah, that has ended badly for a lot of people, right?
Yes, I have seen that.
If you're gonna do that outside, somewhere far from.
This smoke detector, a simple smoke detector for a basic bungalow house. You only need one to be properly placed. It detects if you're the fry plantain,
right,
and the fat get too hot, it detects. And just imagine that at that point where you can still see when you're frying. The other day I was frying plantain at home and it went off, and you know what? It makes this noise. Come on now.
Earlier noise, but it make noise.
Yeah.
When you want to think for, when you want to show it after.
So that's the noise it makes. It might sound annoying, but when it happened to me, I said, it's working.
It'll work, yes,
So if I'm in my room sleeping, that noise should be able to wake me, alert me before the fire gets out of hand where I cannot. And this goes hand in hand with a fire extinguisher. Again, make sure you have both of them.
Okay.
If you're alerted by the smoke detector and you don't have a fire extinguisher, they go hand in hand.
And that's our newscast for tonight. Thanks for watching With Your News. I'm Indra Craig. Remember, you can find a full transcript of the news at 7newsbelize.com and see streaming video on our Facebook and YouTube pages. Cherise Halfel will be here tomorrow, so I'll be seeing you after the Christmas. I hope you and yours have a very merry and blessed holiday. See you back then. Have a good night.